They thought no one would check the manifest, that the fog would hide everything. Even a yacht bound for Boston, carrying velvet crates, no one logged. But the Royal Guards did, and what they found wasn't linen. It was diamonds, rubies. The late Queen's private gems, with no seal, no paperwork, and no right to leave British waters, while Camilla called it charity, said it would open doors in Washington. But the guards knew better, and before she could vanish across the Atlantic, they surrounded her. 3 vessels, floodlights. And a voice from the sky that said, "You're not going anywhere." Now, before we show you how a night voyage turned into a full-scale interception, make sure you're subscribed with the bell icon turned on, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from, and stay right here. Because they didn't just stop a yacht, they stopped a smuggling. The tide was low when the generator lights buzzed on. Sodium arcs bathed the royal dock in dull amber, glinting off rain-slicked stone and the dark hulls of anchored vessels. 4 ceremonial launches, 1 archival tender, a pair of mid-class yachts reserved for diplomatic showings. Nothing unusual. Until the sovereign wave emerged from the fog, Ainsley stood on the east gantry, posture square beneath his rain-slick cloak, clipboard tucked under one arm. 9 years on this dock. He knew its rhythms, its shortcuts, its tells. He'd been trained at Sandhurst under Colonel Hayes, the man who'd once caught a diplomat smuggling Renaissance manuscripts by noticing the vehicle sat 2 inches lower than it should. Hayes had drilled one lesson into every guard. Authority doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It announces itself with inconsistency. And this yacht? Every detail was wrong. The yacht's nameplate caught the light just enough. Deep navy hull, gold trim. The crest of the consort's private maritime registry. Not scheduled, not even listed as moored. But there was more. The waterline sat lower than it should for a vessel that size without passengers. The stern thrusters were already warm. He could see the faint shimmer of heat distortion above the exhaust ports. And the navigation lights had been switched to minimal visibility mode, the kind used for discreet crossings, not ceremonial arrivals. He turned once, nodded to Corporal Thorne Marlowe, who was checking crate logs near the service lift. "You see this?" Marlowe squinted. "That's her boat." "Not on the departure sheet." Lance Corporal Idris Weller looked up from the dock control booth, fingers paused over the keyboard. "It just pinged outbound. Dock 3, no customs flag, no cargo authentication." The gangway lowered with a mechanical hiss. Civilian porters appeared with flat trolleys. On each, long velvet-lined crates, wrapped in waterproof tarps. They moved fast, but reverent. Not textiles, not display boards. Something dense, protected. "Manifest says archival fabric," Marlowe muttered. "That's no linen," Weller said from behind the glass. "No custodial sign-off either." Slips blank. Ainsley watched as the 3rd crate clanked against the gangway rails, heavy enough to rattle aluminum. A porter grunted. One corner dipped, and the faintest metallic thud echoed off the ramp before the case was righted. He didn't move to stop them, not yet. He keyed the comm on his shoulder. "Legacy Post 3, flag internal. Unscheduled consort vessel. Outbound activity present. Requesting verification before clearance." Pause. Then, "Received. Hold pattern authorized. Internal check initiated." He lowered his hand. Rain drifted in sideways now, misting across the hulls. Far out in the channel, a horn groaned once. Long, low, distant. Something was leaving, and it wasn't supposed to. By the time the final crate disappeared below deck, the Sovereign Wave had powered up its stern thrusters. The hiss of pressurized water masked the first churn of dual engines as it pulled silently away from Dock 3. No horn, no announcement, just motion through mist. Inside the patrol shack, Weller leaned over the comm panel. Still no confirmation from Windsor. Command's gone dark. Royal proxy hours. Ainsley's jaw tensed. Meaning? Meaning the consort's office can sign her own departures until morning. Weller paused. "Unless we stop her now." Marlowe snapped his folder shut. "Then we stop her now." They didn't call in local law enforcement, didn't raise the outer perimeter alert, they just moved. 15 minutes later, the three guards were aboard a low-profile patrol vessel, radar dark, no insignia, engines tuned for silence. Weller took helm. Ainsley stood beside the central display, eyes fixed on the tracker. The yacht was moving faster than expected, veering off the standard ceremonial channel and heading southeast. Into the private corridor, reserved for long-range royal excursions. They weren't fleeing, they were getting ahead of a scrutiny. Ainsley keyed the encrypted naval line. Legacy Guard 2 requesting emergency clearance for maritime pursuit. Suspected unauthorized transfer of Class E regalia aboard the Sovereign Wave. Pause. Then, negative. Vessel flagged, classified under proxy consort authority. No inspection authorized. Marlowe shook his head. They've sealed her behind the title. Ainsley didn't hesitate. Then we invoke 17-beat material movement under disputed authority. He clicked off the line. Rain came harder now, horizontal against the patrol boat's glass. The dash-lit cockpit glowed red and blue in the darkness, casting reflections across three silent faces. 10 nautical miles out, the yacht reappeared on visual. Champagne lighting glinted off its aft windows. Nameplate barely visible through sea spray. She was moving fast, but not evasively. This wasn't a getaway, this was a crossing. Deliberate, confident. Ainsley folded his arms. She really thinks she can cross international waters with the Queen's legacy boxed up like export samples. Marlowe stared ahead. Or she thinks nobody will stop her. The patrol vessel closed the gap, silent, steady, unseen. Close enough now to see it clearly. Velvet curtains drawn. A private dinner set inside. And beneath it all, the weight of something heavier than the sea. The guards didn't speak as they came alongside. No spotlight, no siren, just the low hum of twin electric drives gliding against the starboard wake. Wind skimmed the surface of the channel. Rain tapped the hull in erratic rhythm. Ainsley stood at the prow, hand raised, motioning to Marlowe and Weller. The three Coldstream guards moved as one. Silent boots, wet grips, ropes drawn. The yacht wasn't expecting visitors. They boarded midship, where a catering access platform had been left unsecured. No deck watch, no CCTV lens tracking them. Weller gave a soft whistle once his boots touched fiberglass. Not even a motion alarm, Marlowe answered under his breath. They weren't worried about pirates. Inside, the yacht was warm. Too warm. The air carried soft perfume, linen starch, and something else. The sterile trace of heavy climate control. Faint classical music played through recessed speakers. Saloon lights were dimmed, bouncing gold reflections off crystal glassware lined up along the far wall. A steward froze in the galley doorway as the guards passed. Ainsley raised one gloved finger. Don't move. We're here under direct regalia protocol. The steward said nothing. His eyes flicked toward the stairwell, below deck. Marlowe peeled off instantly, disappearing down the corridor. Cabins? Weller asked. Cargo hold. Bow end. They moved fast now, down two narrow sets of stairs, past framed photographs and mahogany trim. At the end of a short hall, they found the door. Reinforced, unmarked, sealed with a latch that didn't match the rest of the yacht's fittings. Marlowe reached for his belt and produced a secondary keycard scanner. Standard issue for Class E vessel inspections. The lock disengaged with a dry metallic chirp. The door swung open, and there they were. 5 velvet-lined steel crates, double-hinged, strapped with export-grade buckles. Each bore a newly printed sticker. Crown Consort Registry, Cultural Gift Program. Underneath, in finer text, Diplomatic Transit Clearance, Boston. Ainsley stepped forward and ran a finger along the edge of one crate. Cut the light! Weller switched on his inspection torch, angling it low. Marlowe undid a single clasp. The lid creaked. Inside, black satin gave way to soft foam. And nestled within it, loose clusters of rubies, sapphire cabochons, and the unmistakable glint of crown-grade diamonds. Not replicas, not displays. Stones that had been worn by the sovereign herself. Ainsley crouched beside the crate, pulling his inspection gloves tighter. He'd been trained in regalia authentication during his second year. 6 weeks under the master of the jewel house. Learning to identify crown stones by cut, clarity, and historical provenance. It was rare training, reserved for guards assigned to high-security transport details. He lifted one stone cluster carefully. 3 diamonds set in Victorian-era platinum. The centre stone had a distinctive inclusion pattern, a small feathering visible only under direct light. He'd seen this piece before, not in person, but in the authenticated catalogue. Cullinan derivative, he said quietly. 3rd generation cut, 1911 commission. Weller looked at him. You're sure? The inclusion pattern's on file. And the setting... He turned it slightly. Platinum alloy used only between 1908 and 1914. After that, they switched composite ratios. He set it back down carefully. This isn't a replica, and it's not supposed to exist outside vault storage. Marlowe examined another cluster. Same with these. Still have the original indexing marks on the back. These aren't for exhibition, Marlowe said quietly. And they're not declared, Weller added. No paperwork, no customs manifest, nothing digital. Ainsley didn't answer. He reached for his lapel communication. Legacy Patrol. Suspected transfer of Class E regalia confirmed. Cargo hold secure. Holding position. Awaiting higher authority. Pause. Static. Then, stand by! A steward's voice called from above. She's awake! The sound of descending heels wasn't rushed, but it wasn't measured either. Camilla emerged at the landing just above the corridor, silhouetted by the soft chandelier glow behind her. Raincoat hung loose over a champagne silk blouse. No crown, no regalia, just the bearing of a woman who expected the world to step aside. She paused when she saw them. 3 guards, standing in the lower corridor, a crate open. The beam of a torch still lingering over a diamond cluster the size of a thumbnail. For a moment no one spoke. Then her voice. You dare storm a sovereign vessel? Ainsley didn't blink. We boarded under procedural code after an unregistered departure from Portsmouth. Manifest flagged. Cargo holds unverified. Camilla's hand closed gently around the wooden railing as she descended. These are presentation pieces. For a cultural partnership in Boston, you've just interrupted a diplomatic contribution. Marlowe stepped back from the open case, allowing her to see the stones. Diamonds aren't diplomatic, ma'am. They're historical. Her eyes narrowed. And who gave you the authority to define the difference? Your manifest didn't carry any, Ainsley replied. Neither did your clearance. Camilla reached the bottom step. She didn't look at the crates, only at the guards. Her voice was colder now, but calm, controlled. Do you understand who's expecting me in New York? The people I'll be meeting. No one answered. She stepped forward, silk moving quietly beneath her coat. They don't care about palace squabbles. They care about alliances and gratitude and symbolic gestures that indicate who still holds relevance in the West. Weller broke the silence. Are you trying to buy influence with unregistered crown property? Her expression sharpened. Not fear, offence. Don't be absurd. These pieces were meant to be retired. They're not tracked, not publicly inventoried. And until your new sovereign declares otherwise, I am the highest authority sailing on this water tonight. Ainsley held her gaze. Until that authority is checked. She gave a short, humourless breath. You think your rifles make you righteous? Your ceremonial, your display cases with shoes. Ainsley's voice didn't rise. And yet, here we are, holding the line between legacy and ambition. For the first time, she looked past them, at the crate, just for a second. Then she turned back. Do you have any idea what it takes to hold this family together? What doors need opening just to keep us seated at the table? Marlowe's hand rested on the crate lid. Ainsley took one step forward. With respect, ma'am. Some doors stay shut for a reason, and in that second, the lights outside the starboard window caught something in the fog. A moving shape, A hovering beacon, approaching fast. The hum came first, low, slow, approaching from the northeast like a storm still too far to see. Then the sweep of searchlight haze cut through the mist above the sovereign wave, spiralling once before locking to a steady hover. Ainsley stepped out onto the top deck just as the beam passed overhead. Rain slashed sideways now, swept by coastal gusts. But even through the noise, he recognized the pattern. Military descent, twin rotor, naval signal on the undercarriage. He pressed his comms button. Perimeter assets inbound. Visual confirmation. Helicopter, Crown variant. Marlowe answered back from the yacht's bow. We've got company from the water too. Looks like a Crown cutter coming in from starboard. Lights cold. Engines silent. Ainsley turned to Camilla, who had followed him to the weather deck. She stopped mid-step as the silhouette of the second vessel breached through the fog. A black and grey cutter sliding into view. No flag, no horn, just presence. Then the third, opposite side, its lights blinking twice before going dark. 3 vessels, no sirens, no weapons, just a net, a royal encirclement. A soft thump overhead signalled the helicopter's descent. Camilla squinted toward the dark outline, now hovering less than 100 feet above the water. The side door was already open. Ropes lowered. The guard said nothing. Then the thump of boots on the deck behind them. Light. Precise. Prince William landed without ceremony. No aids, no rain cover. Just his long coat drenched and face unreadable. He walked across the deck toward Ainsley, pausing only to glance once at Camilla. You planned to cross the Atlantic with my grandmother's jewels? Camilla didn't blink. For Britain's image. William studied her for a moment. For your future. She raised her chin. This country has debts, William. Not just economic ones, historical ones, symbolic ones. These were never hers to hoard. They weren't hers, he interrupted. They were part of what she left behind, part of what you were meant to guard. He turned to Ainsley. Status? Ainsley's voice was level. Unmanifested gemstones? 5 crates, all sealed under false diplomatic registry. Destination listed as cultural outreach in Boston. No custodial seal, no authentication. William nodded once. Then this vessel is no longer in motion. Ainsley tapped his radio. All engines halt! On all 3 flanks, the cutter lights pulsed once. A silent confirmation. No shots, no horns, just stillness. Camilla turned slowly in place, eyes drifting from the guards to the rope ladder, still dangling from the helicopter above. She looked toward the horizon. A private jet's beacon blinked faintly through the fog, waiting somewhere out there, waiting for cargo that would never arrive. The helicopter didn't lift. It stayed hovering above the sovereign wave, blades churning the fog into spirals as rope ladders swung in rhythm. On deck, 3 more Royal Guards dropped down. Corporal Lane, Sergeant Willoughby, Corporal Esther Quinn. No one saluted. This wasn't military pageantry. This was containment. Ainsley stepped forward and gave a sharp nod. Proceed! Quinn produced a crown-sealed manifest tablet. All cargo bays. Below decks and secondary hold. Ainsley pointed below. Starboard stairwell, secured by guard Holt. Tertiary bay remains sealed since loading. The team moved with the precision of a forensic unit. No weapons drawn, but their gloves were already on. The first crate was located aft, near the engine housing. It bore a diplomatic clearance tag with a spelling inconsistency. Cultural Ministry, Outreach Wing. Except the Outreach Wing had been dissolved in 2023, and the clearance signature was digital only. Willoughby slit the crate open, inside. No paperwork, no preservation seals, just loose cloth bundles. He unwrapped one, then froze. Even by torchlight, the stones caught. Not just sparkle, fire. God, someone muttered. Rubies, emeralds, diamonds the size of olives, and some still encrusted in filigreed silver. None of them matched official Crown Archive registry shapes or settings, but all of them matched something else. Portraiture, jewellery once photographed on the Queen in state functions across 5 decades. "These aren't cultural artefacts," Quinn said coldly. "These are crown-set heritage gems." Camilla's voice rang from behind. "They were removed from state rotation. Unworn, unlisted. They're better used as gestures of reconciliation." William turned to face her. "Or as leverage." He gestured toward the tablet in Quinn's hands. "Pull up the export partner." Quinn tapped twice. The screen blinked, then froze on a single logo. A foreign consulting firm based in New York, recently renamed, previously under a different shell company. William stared at it for a beat too long, then said flatly, "That firm hosted the Mar-a-Lago Trade Gala last spring." Camilla's eyes narrowed. William didn't look at her. "You weren't selling culture. You were offering influence." No one spoke. The rain had dulled, but the deck seemed colder than before. Ainsley gestured sharply. "Crates 2 and 3, open and verify." 2 more guards hoisted crowbars. Each lid cracked with a wet snap, the wood swelling from moisture. The contents were near identical. A sapphire and diamond set traced back to 1958, and a broken pendant believed to have belonged to Queen Mary, long rumoured lost. "Everything here qualifies as custodial Class A," Ainsley said. "And it was about to vanish," William murmured. Camilla folded her arms, unmoved. "The Queen wore these to impress the Empire. I use them to impress the world. Call it modernization." William turned his back to her. "A cargo list will be compiled. Mark every item with GPS logging. No container leaves without archival match." Then he paused, glancing back at Camilla once more, "and lock her quarters." The door to her stateroom was carved teak, polished to a dull gleam. Camilla reached for the brass handle, but Corporal Lane stepped in front of her before she could touch it. "Mom!" Behind him, Sergeant Ainsley approached, holding a white evidence seal, its royal insignia stamped in crimson. "On direct order from Prince William, Custodial Lockdown Protocol, Article 9. Camilla scoffed. "This isn't Balmoral. This is a diplomatic vessel. Flying under Crown Registry," Ainsley cut in, "with Class A heirlooms in undocumented transfer. That places the entire ship under investigatory authority." Her fingers curled into her gloves. "You're lucky my husband is too ill to respond." That sentence sat in the air like a stone. Ainsley didn't flinch. "And perhaps you're only here because of that." He didn't wait for a reply. He turned to Lane. "Proceed." Lane broke the wax seal on a secondary strip, peeled it from its backing, and affixed it across the stateroom door, stretching it from top corner to bottom hinge. Once pressed, it glowed faint red. A heat-reactive polymer used only for royal evidence sealing. The lock engaged with a click. No one looked at Camilla. She stood alone, rain-damp hair settling over her shoulders, face rigid. "Do you know what this looks like?" she said finally. William stepped into view from the companionway. "It looks like something that should have never happened on my mother's waters." He didn't raise his voice. In fact, he barely spoke above the wind, but each word cut. "You used her illness to orchestrate a sale. You hid it beneath charity banners, exploited Crown logistics, and attached it to a political name not fit to walk those halls." Camilla's lip curled. "He's a future world leader." William didn't blink. "He's banned from 3 parliaments." Ainsley and the guard stood motionless. Then footsteps, sharp, purposeful, coming up the starboard stairs. Princess Anne appeared without announcement, field coat buttoned to the collar, hair pulled back, eyes already scanning the scene. She'd been briefed mid-flight. That much was obvious. She moved like someone who'd spent 40 years watching people try to rewrite rules they didn't understand. She stopped beside William, glanced once at the sealed door, then at Camilla. "You proposed this same transfer 8 months ago," Anne said quietly, "at the Balmoral Estate Review. My mother's response was recorded in the minutes. I have them memorized." She paused. "She said these pieces stay in trust because they represent continuity, not currency." Camilla's jaw tightened. times change. Not that fast. Anne stepped closer. You waited until she couldn't stop you. Until my brother was too ill to intervene, and you thought we wouldn't notice a yacht leaving Portsmouth in the middle of proxy hours with falsified cargo documentation. The documentation was forged, Anne cut in. The clearance signature doesn't exist. The export partner is a shell company that didn't exist 6 months ago, and the stones inside those crates, she gestured below deck. 3 of them were photographed on my mother during the Jubilee. Another 5 were part of Queen Mary's personal collection, marked non-transferable in her will. Camilla said nothing. Anne's voice dropped. You weren't modernising. You were erasing. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the kind that settles when the truth has been spoken aloud, and no amount of deflection will undo it. William stepped closer. You dressed it as diplomacy, but it was access, leverage, a back channel to sell off what wasn't yours. Camilla bristled. I had authorization. No, William, you had opportunity, and you took it. He gestured again, and 2 guards flanked her without touching. From this moment on, your passage aboard this vessel is revoked. You'll be escorted to a secure observation berth until disembarkation. You wouldn't dare. It's already done. She moved to step forward, but the seal on the door lit up again, brighter now, as if warning her. She stopped. And that's when Ainsley noticed them. Faces in the upper deck windows. Crew members who'd paused mid-task. A senior steward near the galley entrance. The yacht's chief officer standing on the bridge catwalk, hands still on the railing. None of them moved. None of them spoke. But they were watching. Not with phones. Not recording. Just witnessing. This was how institutional memory formed. Not through headlines or press releases, but through moments like this, silent, undeniable, seen by those who would carry it forward in careful phrasings and unspoken understandings. One of the older crew members, a woman who'd served on royal vessels for 30 years, stood near the bow observation deck. She didn't look away when Camilla's eyes found hers, didn't offer support or judgment, just bore witness. By dinner service tonight, every senior crew member on the Royal Maritime Registry would know, not through gossip, through the kind of quiet, factual relay that moved through institutional ranks like water through stone. The Queen Consort had been detained on her own yacht, by her own stepson, for attempting to smuggle crown jewels to America. Ainsley raised his radio. Observation ready? Ready. The guards turned, and Camilla followed them without another word, her heels silent against the rain-polished deck. William stood alone, watching the glow of the evidence seal fade to stillness. Then, quietly, no one surrounds a legacy without facing what's still guarding it. The harbour lights of Portsmouth flickered in the pre-dawn haze. Light drizzle swept across the docks, making the stone underfoot glisten like polished slate. The Sovereign wave pulled in slowly, flanked by 2 Royal Navy patrol boats, keeping a silent escort on either side. No media. No flag fanfare. Only silence and steel. On the bridge, Sergeant Ainsley stood beside the harbour liaison, clipboard in hand. Passenger manifest has been amended. One diplomatic guest no longer holds disembarkation clearance. The liaison blinked. You mean Queen Consort Camilla? Ainsley looked at him once, unreadable. That designation has been suspended pending investigation. She remains aboard under royal instruction. Behind them, the covered gangway extended. Prince William stood near the edge of the port ramp in a dark peacoat, hands in gloves, posture still. He watched as the sealed crates, now triple-marked with Crown custody seals, were lowered via crane and transferred directly to the awaiting armoured vault van. Each case was scanned, logged, signed. Camilla appeared at the edge of the deck, flanked by Corporal Lane and Corporal Quinn. Her coat was immaculate, her face unreadable. She didn't speak as she approached the gangway, but the guards didn't move. A pause. Then Ainsley stepped forward. You are to remain aboard. Sir William's directive holds until the Parliamentary Custodial Committee issues ruling. Camilla stared past him toward the land she had once claimed to represent. I had invitations waiting in New York. William stepped forward, unhurried. They've been informed. Politely withdrawn. Her voice dropped. Do you have any idea what you've just cost the Crown? He met her eyes without blinking. The Crown doesn't operate on cost. It operates on memory. A faint gust of sea wind lifted her silver blonde hair. Still, she didn't move. Behind them, the last crate was sealed. The final manifest was signed. Ainsley handed the clipboard to the liaison, who nodded wordlessly and stepped off the dock. The ramp retracted. Camilla stood at the edge of it, motionless. William turned without another word and walked down the dock, boots echoing against the stone. The guards followed. A harbour official stepped toward Ainsley and whispered, "What should I tell the American envoy?" Ainsley didn't look away from the vessel. "Tell them she's staying for the rain." The engines hissed faintly behind the hull. The crew remained below deck. Above, only the royal flag remained, limp in the wind, but intact. And below that, in a secured hold, the late Queen's jewels sat wrapped and relisted, each stone accounted for, each crest still engraved. Not a single one would cross the Atlantic. Inside the guardroom at Windsor, the stone walls held the cool of early morning. Steam curled from mugs half drunk. The logbook sat open on the table. 3 red entries, initialed and stamped. Sergeant Rowan Ainsley stood near the weapons rack, adjusting the ceremonial clasp on his tunic. Across from him, Corporal Lane leaned against the stone archway, silent. Quinn checked the duty cycle clipboard without a word. No one spoke about what had just unfolded, because there wasn't much to say. The ship had been stopped. The Queen's jewels recovered. And Camilla? Still aboard, still silent, still watched. A chime echoed from the door console. Prince William stepped in without ceremony, peacoat on, no aids, no titles. He looked at the 3 guards, not with command, not with thanks, with solidarity. "Final report's been logged," Ainsley said quietly. "All assets secured." William gave a nod. "And the crest?" Quinn tapped the ledger. "Crate 11B, upper right, stamped with Her Majesty's seal, the original one." A long breath passed. Then William stepped forward, hand resting briefly on the table beside the guard's logbook. "You didn't just protect the Crown tonight. You protected what's left of its meaning." Ainsley didn't nod, and he didn't need to. He simply turned the logbook closed, pressed the brass latch, and locked it. The moment held. Then William stepped back. "You'll receive no medals for this. No photos, no press." Lane gave the smallest smile. "We're not paid in recognition, sir." "Good," William said, "because the people who know what happened are the ones who needed to." He stepped out into the corridor, footsteps fading with each turn. No one followed. The guardroom fell back into stillness, just the ticking of the wall clock, the faint shuffle of wool across stone, and 3 red entries. 1 ship stopped, 1 title revoked, 1 legacy untouched. What would you have done if you were one of those guards? Should Camilla ever regain access to the Queen's legacy after what they found? And do you think Prince William waited too long to act? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. Make sure you're subscribed with the bell icon turned on, and share this story with someone who still believes the Royal Guard just stands still. Because sometimes standing still is the loudest answer there is.